Hello, my quilting friends. Leah Day here with episode 30 of the podcast. And today I'm going to share an interview with Deborah Fisher. She is a ceramicist as well as a quilter and sewist. She makes these awesome ceramics that are pin cushions as well. And I fell in love with them at Quilt Con and ended up buying a different pin cushion for my sisters as well as two for myself. And then now I'm like a Deborah Fisher junkie. So I get on her Etsy shop every time she puts up new stuff and I try and get more. So I'm extremely addicted to her products and I hope to addict you to them as well. So it's really, really fun to talk to her about running her Etsy shop, about balancing that with the other things she does. She also runs some nonprofits as well as sewing and quilting and making. And that kind of making lifestyle. So I really hope that you're going to enjoy this interview with Deborah and come and check out her Etsy shop, Fish Museum and Circus. Now for a few updates around the house. It has been quite a week, a lot of things going on, so I hope to share with you lots of different things. What I'm working on today as I share this interview is an hand embroidery. And if you're watching the video, then you'll of course be able to see what I'm talking about. If you are listening to the audio, you can come and check out the show notes and see some pictures. So this is a goddess design called Express Your Love. And it is a quilt, so I've shared this as a quilt. I've made this quilt actually several times, but this version that I'm stitching on today is a smaller, tiny miniature version, about the size of a sheet of paper, 8.5 by 11. And I have been slowly stitching it in beads and embroidery floss for years. This has been probably in progress since 2013 at some point. And it's been a UFO, unfinished object, for quite some time. And then just recently, whenever I finished James's puff quilt, I decided it was time to get serious about it and get this thing done. So every evening, James and I watch a television show together on the iPad. Usually, actually we've been kind of working our way through all the superhero shows. So we watched Arrow and Legends of Tomorrow and Flash, and then now we're on Supergirl. So we're watching Supergirl in the evenings on the iPad while I sit here and stitch on this embroidery. So projects like this can take years, but how I've decided to work it out is by having that dedicated sewing time, hand stitching time every evening. And this has been great. It might be only 20 to 45 minutes, maybe max, but having that little bit of time every single evening meant that I get a little bit of stitching in. And then what I've been doing lately, because I'm doing the dense background fill, which is very boring, it's only 2 colors, and it's very tedious, I've been shooting photos of it every single night so that way I can see my progress. And that was a technique that I learned whenever I was quilting Duchess Reigns. It was kind of the same situation. I would stitch and stitch and stitch, and I would feel like I was not getting anything finished. And I was actually making some small progress by shooting a picture of it every time I started or every time I ended. I could see how much I was getting done. And then that made me feel so much better about it. Sometimes when a project feels stuck to me, it's only stuck in my head because I feel like I'm not moving forward on it. And to combat that, I have to be able to see my progress. And so now I can flip through the photos on my phone and see how much progress I've made, and that makes me feel really good. So now at this point, I'm halfway done with the background stitching, and pretty much after that, I'm going to be stitching on silver beads, these really tiny silver beads through basically her breath area, and you can see a picture of it here. So really, it's getting close to being done. It's really exciting. I did run out of some beads that I was stitching on this quilt, which is not a good thing to have happen. And so I'm trying to figure out where I can find more. They're really unique pressed glass leaf shape, and because I filled in that area so densely, I really can't kind of, add something else there. So I'm hoping maybe I'll go to Asheville, or I know there's a bead store there, or I'll look online and see if I can find something that'll work in that area. I certainly don't want to try and cobble something together. I really want it to be the same bead and be filled in nicely. So it just feels good to be working on this just a little bit every day and be seeing progress. I've got so many versions of this quilt because we did a quilt along with it that I just feel like there's a lot unfinished left over. And this is actually going to be something I'm working on, definitely going into 2018. I'm going to write a book on all of my goddess quilts and that story, and I really want more of them done. There's several that are still in an unfinished state, and so as I've been starting to pull my thoughts together and kind of get an outline created, I've also started thinking about those quilts and figuring out ways of taking them and getting them done quickly. Not necessarily in a bad way. There's one or two that I've actually kind of just changed my mind on. Instead of making them, densely quilted wall hangings, why not make it into a throw? I mean, there's no rule that says that it has to be a wall quilt. I could make some of these into baby quilts or throw quilts, and that would be so much faster and easier to finish. Now, speaking of books, I know I just said something about writing another book, and I wanted to show you, guess what this is? This is the first draft to my walking foot book. I don't want to show you the cover because it's definitely going to change. I realized I wanted to have my face on the front cover, but I realized that I don't have the photography skills to really do that. So the front cover is definitely going to change, but it's almost here. I mean, this is the first draft, so that's really exciting. I get to go through it with a fine-tooth comb this week and, kind of double check everything, make sure my math is right on all the quilt patterns. And then, of course, if there's any fiddling or adjusting that needs to happen within the book itself, now's the time to change that. So it feels really exciting, like we're almost done. So it's very exciting times, and I have a lot of hopes and expectations writing on this, definitely. We are going to be quilting along through several of the quilts in the book next year, and that feels really exciting too. I've never done that before. Since 2014, we've done a single quilt pattern, and worked through it step by step, block by block, and it's always been a quilt as you go project. Well, that's, there's only so many years you can do the same thing before it starts to get boring and feel a little stale. And so this year, with the book, I kind of looked at it and was like, really this is the best option. And then we can stitch the 30 designs that are in the book together and quilt through some of the projects and actually piece a quilt and quilt it all in one big piece, and I think that'll be really exciting and something very different. And it'll also give me great opportunity to share lots of cool videos. So that's exciting too. Now, speaking of videos, I shared a new design this past week called Voodle. So definitely go and check it out. This is really cool. A lot of people have been saying it reminds them of peacock feathers. So that might be another name for it, an alternative name if you like that better. Voodle, I was kind of thinking of voodoo and noodles. Kind of merge the two words. It's really fun when you just start making up words for designs. I think they're more interesting, and I tend to remember them better whenever they have a unique name like that. So that's always fun. So definitely go check out and learn how to quilt Voodle. And starting this week, I'm going to be sharing some designs, some fall designs on the set-down long arms. So our set-down Sundays for the next couple of weeks or so, we're going to be sharing some pumpkin designs and some spider web designs. So I hope that you'll come and check out that every Sunday and see what's going on. I really love this time of the year. This is my favorite month of the year. My birthday is actually next week, so we'll be running a fall sale. Well, actually, we just got finished with the fall sale. We'll be running a birthday sale next week. So I don't know, it just feels like a wonderful season. To me, it's always a relief because it's so hot in the summertime, especially out in the Crafty Cottage. It's always a relief to be getting into this time of the year because I feel like I can film and not be always sweating. So it's kind of nice to be able to go out to the Crafty Cottage and it just feel kind of crisp and cool out there. And then when I turn on the lights, everything starts to heat up, and that just is absolutely perfect. So it's my favorite time of the year to be making videos. It's my favorite time of the year to be decorating and, cozied up on the couch with a new quilt. Now, speaking of a new quilt, I have so much to share with you guys, and I'm happy it's just kind of flowing right off the top of my head, which is really great. We have an awesome little mini quilt along that's going to happen this month, and I've kind of had to just be quiet about it for so long that I'm really excited to share about it. This is my Quilty Box month. So this month I picked all of the items that are coming in Quilty Box, and I have a really awesome quilt project for us to make together. So it's called the Heart Medallion Checkerboard, and it uses 2 yards of the Heart Medallion fabric, so 1 yard of green and 1 yard of blue, and that's going to come in your Quilty Box. So we're going to fussy cut out some squares, piece them together, and then learn how to quilt it together as well. So I have 5 videos coming out for this, and it's going to be towards the middle to end of the month. And the cool thing about this quilt, this is really the first time I've ever done a 2-design border. It's a really unique border design that I absolutely love. And I love how it came out. It's a very interesting quilt. Was very simple. I just stitched, kind of outline stitched the heart medallions. I kept it really simple, and then I wanted to stitch a really big open border. And I think it might have taken maybe a day and a half to quilt it on my home machine, which is really fast. And then now I'm using it as a tablecloth. I know that's maybe slightly sacrilegious, but Laura Koya, if you go back and listen to the podcast with Laura Koya, that was something that she was doing with her quilts. She was using them as tablecloths. And I really like that idea. I pull out a quilt and put it on the bed, but I don't really get to enjoy it, right there all the time. I'm just kind of sleeping under it, right? So putting this quilt on the table has really changed my perspective on it. And I love it even more because it's been on my table every day. It's so sunshiny and cheerful. And then it's also made me realize that probably didn't pick the best batting for that purpose. It's really puffy. So as they're setting down a glass, it's a little lumpy, and I'm trying to figure out like the flatter areas of the quilt to set my cup down. I'll share a picture with you so you can see exactly what I'm talking about. But it's been an adventure, and Josh kind of was like, we should record the day whenever it gets stained, and I think it was within the first couple of days that we put the quilt on the table that James dropped a blueberry muffin on it. And yeah, it instantaneously stained it, and I'm okay with that. I've got plenty of quilts for my beds. This is a beautiful throw quilt, be perfect for a couch, but I found it was also perfect for my dining room table. So I hope you're as excited as I am about making this quilt. And, we have the little mini quilt along here right in the middle of the month that'll guide you through not just piecing, but also quilting a really fun quilt. So I hope that you'll check that out. If you are not a Quilty Box subscriber, I think you might have enough time that you can sign up and be able to get this box too. So check it out in a link below this video or audio player. And remember that you can always help support this podcast by checking out our website and quilt shop at leahday.com. I have books and tools, all kinds of gear from machine quilting on your home machine, as well as online quilting workshops that will guide you step by step through creating a cool quilt project with me. So I hope that you'll come and check it out at leahday.com. And now here's the interview with Deborah Fisher from Fish Museum and Circus. Hello, my quilting friends. Leah Day here with Deborah Fisher. Welcome to the show, Deborah.
Thanks for having me.
Now, a little introduction. Deborah Fisher is an object maker. She's a designer of sewn things and an idea generator. She is the author of So Fun, 20 Projects for the Whole Family, and Quilt Giving, 19 Simple Quilt Patterns to Make and Give. And she's designed sewing patterns for numerous magazines. For her business, Fish Museum and Circus, she creates charming handmade accessories, including ceramics and wool pin cushions for people who like to sew. Now, I met Deborah at Quilt Con last February, and I was completely blown away by her ceramics. So you kind of go through all the vendors, and you see all of these people, and everything kind of starts to looks the same, and then you come up on the booth that's like, wildly different. And that was Deborah's booth. And let me show you what I bought. I'll describe this for everyone listening to the audio. Basically, it's a ceramic lady, and she is completely naked usually, but it was kind of funny. I came into my room, and one of my guys, either my son or my husband, had kind of put a little scrap of fabric over her chest. And so she's topped with a strawberry pincushion, and I've put all of my decorative pins in the top of it. So that is what I got from Deborah at Quilt Con, and I just fell in love with your work and started following you, and I follow your newsletter, and I picked up another ceramic a few months later. So it's kind of like, I don't know, this, I feel like I'm kind of cyber stalking you, honestly. So tell me about Quilt Con and how that went, and how that show went for you in Savannah.
Well, Quilt Con was totally amazing. It totally blew me away. I kind of had a soft opening of my Etsy shop in the fall, but I knew I was working towards Quilt Con because I said, if I'm going to see if this is going to work or not, and I'm going to just invest and see if there's any interest in this. And I thought I could just be sitting there by myself for 4 days, just doing nothing. And it completely blew me away because I had, as far as ceramics, and I had other things also, but as far as ceramics, I had 150 ceramic objects, and I sold out in the first day and a half. And I basically stood there from, the minute that it opened until the minute that it closed, wrapping things. And it was totally amazing. And everybody was they were so wonderful and sweet, and people were saying to me, people who I had no connection with at all, except that they were there, said, "I'm so happy for you." And it was just a really fantastic experience. So I was really happy the way it went, and so everyth's kind of going forward from there.
Okay, so Quilt Con was like the first big show you'd ever done.
Yes.
Excellent.
I had just said, let's see, if this is going to work, and it did. Apparently, I kind of hit a nerve what you said about after a while, certain things start to look the same, and I guess this was just different. So.
Very much so, and it's so cheerful and fun, and I think that's what I love about it the most, is like they're whimsical and different, and like your creatures don't all look like normal creatures, and like my giraffe, it could also be a dinosaur, and it could also be some kind of creative horse. I mean, it's like there's so many different ways that you can interpret that, and I love that too. So tell me about the one that I really want to be able to get a hold of, and I haven't been able to be fast enough on the trigger yet, and that is your thread pooping unicorns.
Well, that came after Quilt Con. I had mostly at Quilt Con the little animals. I call them arbitrary four-legged mammals because they're just, some of them kind of resemble something and something else, and maybe something else, and different. They resemble different things to different people. I mean, at Quilt Con, I had things that I thought of as kind of pig-like, and somebody held one up and said, "Do you have any more of these cows?" And I said, okay, I guess it could be a cow. I really do like that. It makes it more fun for me, and I think it makes it more fun for everybody else. And then I had the heads. And after Quilt Con, I said, okay, I want to kind of broaden the line that I have. And so I started playing around with like a thread holder. So the thread pooping unicorn is just like a little container kind of thing with kind of like the pin cushion, but without the pin cushion in it, and it fits a large spool of Aurifil thread, and it has a hole in the back. And I said, I don't know, you think anybody will want any of these? And so then I put it on Instagram. I said, is anybody interested in this thread pooping unicorn? And it was crazy, and people were coming out of the woodwork saying, we need this. So yes, and the thread pooping unicorns tend to honestly, they're not as much fun for me because with the pin cushions, I get to play around with the wool fabric and the trims and everything that go with it, and I do like that. But yeah, they're a little more elusive than the other ones. So they come out once in a while.
Definitely. And so I joined your newsletter, and now how you're putting them up, you kind of put up a big load of things on Etsy, and then they all kind of go live at once at a specific time. And like a couple of weeks, you had a whole big set go up. And I actually had scheduled it on my phone so that I could check out what was going online. And everything sold out. I had to update my credit card information, and in the amount of time that it took me to plug in my new credit card information, it had all sold out. So I imagine that's a really wonderful problem to have.
It is. I can't complain, although I do feel badly because there's always people who aren't able to get them. I don't know. There's different people's computers are faster than others, and so it's just some people have a lot of luck and some people haven't been able to get any. People want me to be able to take like orders or reserve, and it's just not something that I can handle right now as far as the logistics of it. So I always tell people just to keep trying because there will be more. So and it will. I try to alter the times. I learned that there's 13 time zones in Australia, so which I had no idea. So I try to do some earlier in the day, some later in the day, so that different people will have a different chance. And I want to make everybody happy, but it's not really possible, but I'm trying.
Certainly. And I can imagine, it can be a double-edged sword. It's having something that's wonderful and popular, but then the opposite of that is not everyone can get it. So tell me a little bit about your production schedule and how you plan this out and how you keep yourself, coming up with new things, and then also how you have like 30 objects going up at once.
It really depends. So I work from home, and I am, as I'm sure a lot of your listeners are, the default for my kids. So, summer gets to be a little bit trickier because I'm juggling more. And then I have other work as well. So I'm still sometimes do designs for magazines. I have 2 small nonprofits, a quilt and a international doll project nonprofit that I also work for. So it's a balance, and it really will just depend on what's happening. My newsletter goes out the first and third Thursdays of every month, and I try to have a batch ready. So those are my goals, kind of the first and third Thursdays of the month. And sometimes it's 2 weeks between them, sometimes it's 3 weeks between them. It just depends on how it goes. If I have some kind of like events, I have to hold stuff back because I have to have things for the event, which also makes me feel bad because I feel like my online customers and really aren't getting as many things as I have, but I have to have things for the event. So if I sell out for an event, then it's going to take me longer to get things back for the online store. Otherwise there's more. I also have to realize that I have to only have a certain number of things each time, because if I have too many things online at once, like once I posted, I think it was maybe 40 something, it's too much for me to keep track of and pack up and make sure that everybody's getting the right thing. So now I try to do anywhere from like 15 to 25 things at once, and it kind of just depends on really what's happening. And also with ceramics, it's a whole different kind of ball game than with textiles or fabric, in that it has to dry and it has to be fired twice, and things crack and things break, and so I kind of have to figure it all in there. And and just hope for the best sometimes. Hope that it all works out. Cross my fingers.
So I imagine that's just a lot of balancing, kind of going, okay, I've got, so many pieces in the kiln, and then you kind of open it up and see how everything's kind of going. And then have you had things break in transit? Like once somebody orders something, has anything ever broken in the mail?
Not yet. So, yay. I try to wrap them well, and they are stoneware, so they're pretty strong. So I'm sure that at some point it will happen, but then we'll just figure it out from there, I guess.
Absolutely. And so you mentioned that you don't want to take orders and you don't want to like work on commission, and most of that is just simply the balancing act of trying to keep track of everything. Is that the struggle?
It's a couple of different things. Yes, it is. All of that takes more time. Because you have to keep track of everything, and I wouldn't even really know how to do it, although I'm sure I could figure it out. People have spreadsheets. So all that takes time, which takes away from the time that I have to make things, and so then there'll be less things that people will have to be able to get. The other thing is that each one is different, so I never, and a lot of people say, I don't care which one I get, but there's I see when people order things or when they're looking at things at a show, it's like kind of speaks to them, like, oh, this is the one, this is mine, and so I don't want to have to choose for somebody, oh, this is for you, and I also don't really have the time to then like take multiple photographs and send photographs and say, which one do you want? It just becomes right now, and maybe someday I will do that. But right now, I'm gonna just go with what's working right now.
And it seems to be working great. Yeah, it seems to be working really, really well. And tell me about the events. Like, are you setting up anywhere like November, December-ish? Anywhere in North Carolina?
Well, after I'm in New York, so after going all the way down to Savannah, I decided, now we're recording this before my September event, which is Quilters Take Manhattan in New York, Manhattan. So that's my fall event. I realized that I can't, especially if people want to do holiday shopping online, I can't do a later event because then I won't have anything. It's just, it's just time. There's only so many things that I can make at once. So I'm kind of thinking that I will do a spring event and a fall event each year. And I'm curious to see how Quilters Take Manhattan will go, because it's a much more intimate, smaller situation than Quilt Con was. So we'll see how that goes, and kind of weighing what to do in the spring. So probably a Northeast event, because I have to figure in all of the travel time and all that stuff, all that extra stuff if I go places.
So did you fly with all of your ceramics for the booth?
No, we drove. We rented a minivan, and because we have two small cars that have like 200,000 miles on them, and so we rented this minivan and we packed everything, jam-packed with the kids in the back, and drove down. It took us 2 days. We drove 2 days down, 2 days back up. Hotel. My family had a very nice vacation in Savannah. They had a great time. I didn't see Savannah at all, but it was still a great time. So, for example, I'm not going to go to California in the spring for Quilt Con because I'd have to fly, and I'm sure that would be extremely expensive to ship all of my stuff there. But I may be in Nashville the following year.
Yeah, I'm really excited about Nashville. I'm planning on going to that one too, so that'll be really fun. So, really, let's just talk about starting your Etsy shop. So you said you kind of soft launched it last fall, and so when you first began putting up ceramics, did they sell out the same way that they are doing now, or was it slower when you first got started?
It was definitely slower. I didn't put a lot in. I would put in a little bit at a time. I was just starting my newsletter, so I had a much smaller audience, really, who even knew that things were there. And I knew I was getting ready for Quilt Con, so I didn't want to put too many things because I needed those items for Quilt Con. But I knew it was successful enough that I felt pretty good about, that it could work out. I thought it could work out.
And why Etsy and not like your own website? Did you want that platform where people could search for it, or what was it that made you want to do Etsy versus just putting it on your own site?
Etsy, and I had a shop in Etsy a number of years ago when I was making dolls and things that I sold, and it's really so much more complete now. It's just easier for me. Now, I don't know, I've never had my own shop separate, so I don't know, but it's so great that they just keep track of everything, and I can buy the shipping labels. You couldn't do that years ago. So that it just makes it easier. And I'm not sure really what the advantage would be to go the other way right now, but maybe someday I would do that.
Yeah.
But right now it's all set up kind of, and I don't have to worry about that.
Yeah.
I don't like to worry about that part. I like to make stuff. I'm a maker. So all that extra stuff is just like kind of a pain in the neck for me.
Absolutely. Yeah. No, I completely agree. And I think that however you begin, kind of, just keeping that going, and especially if it's an easy system, and it sounds like it is, that's the way to stick with it. Keep it easy, keep it simple. So, how is your process like? Do you have certain days of the week that you like to create, and then a certain day you fire? And are you on like a schedule, or does it kind of fluctuate week by week?
So, yes, it's definitely week by week. It depends on, my kids' schedules. And sometimes, of course, it's a day-to-day and some things happen. I share the kiln with my father, actually. So and because my stuff is small, we usually kind of each have a shelf. We usually kind of fit 2 shelves in there. So it just depends on what he's doing, and it depends on what I'm doing. And so it really just kind of depends on what's happening. I really try to get as much done as I can during the day when my kids are at school, but of course, and I'm sure you do this, and many people who work from home, I'm up early and I'm working in the morning. My older daughter gets the school bus at 7 in the morning, and my younger daughter doesn't get the bus until 9. So I try to kind of get an hour, maybe worth of work in between there. And then at night, I work, and I work on the weekends. And so there are definite advantages to working from home, and as well as disadvantages, because it's hard to escape from it too.
Yes, definitely. I completely feel that. Like, I work kind of follows me around the house. I'll have like a list and my notebook, and then it's kind of like I can't get away from that no matter where I go through the house. So
Yeah.
you're also a quilter and a writer. You've written some books. How are you balancing like making a bigger quilt with these small ceramics? Do you have days that you are quilting? Do you have a separate setup? Like, how does that kind of all work together?
Not well. It's a mess. My studio is a mess in terms of where things are. I'm kind of I'm kind of an accidental ceramicist. I call myself, because I really didn't plan on getting into this. I just kind of fell into it. And my dad, I'll tell you the quick origin of my accidental ceramicist story. My dad has been making furniture since he retired, although he has macular degeneration, and so he's a big planner. and knew that there would come a time at some point when he wouldn't safely be able to use all the power tools. So he said, about not quite 2 years ago, he said to me, I'm thinking of taking a ceramics class because I think maybe that would be a good direction to go in. And I said, oh, that sounds like fun. And I had done ceramics years ago, but not in a very long time. And he said, oh, well, why don't you take it with me? And I thought, well, that would be fun, but I got, a million other things to do. And then I said, well, I'm really lucky that I have him nearby and that he wants to do this and this would be fun. I'll just do it. And so then after a while, though, I thought, oh, this is great. I really like doing this, but am I just making, dishes for us, or how am I going to kind of decide in my head what this is really for? And that's when I started playing around with the pin cushions. But it really wasn't something that I kind of said, I'm now going to do ceramics and do this. So so it definitely has put a time restriction on my sewing, which is the one thing that I really don't like about it. And so I will design quilts for the nonprofit that I run, the Bright Hopes Collaborative Quilt Project. And I've just started sewing some clothes for myself, which is kind of a nice way of getting back to my sewing. But I haven't really quite figured out yet in terms of the studio setup and the time setup how to balance all of it. It's just one of those things that I'm gonna, I think, keep kind of struggling with, especially as long as the ceramics seems to be so popular and so intriguing to people. So I feel like I have an audience and I want them to be happy. So I'm doing a lot more ceramics, I guess.
Yeah. Well, tell me about your quilt nonprofit, and do people donate quilts to that, or how can people get involved with it?
So we are a very local to Suffolk County, Long Island. I started this organization with my mother back in 2003, so we've been going for a long time now, and I had never made a quilt at that point. That was kind of the start of my quilting. But we now have, we started making quilts to donate to people who are in temporary housing, so families in shelters and foster children and in those types of situations. And so we now have 3 programs. We have that program, our quilt giving program. We have a quilt community program where we work with different organizations or groups such as scout troops and at community events, and they help us to make quilts that we then donate through our quilt giving program. And then we have our Quilt Works program where we go into, right now we've been working, actually it's been a long time already, about almost 9 years, something like that, with a children's residence about a half an hour from kind of where we're located, where we work with the kids there and they make their own quilts to take with them wherever they're going, whether it's foster care or back to a home or, wherever they're going. So I do all the quilt designing and the cutting. We've kind of, over the years, developed this kind of system that seems to work. We have about 20 volunteers. Everybody kind of seems to find their way, their part in the group, which is one of the things that I just love about it. There are some people who don't even sew. They will fundraise, or they'll wash and iron, or they'll do, anything else. But they're like, I don't want to sew, but I want to be part of this. Great. And so we've kind of developed this system of I will design the quilts and cut them. I didn't realize how many people don't like cutting out quilts. I've done many, many, many quilts, and it's probably the part that I maybe even like the best. But people are so happy when I give them everything all cut and ready to go. We have a long arm machine that the volunteers use. We have a group that likes the quilting. So it's been a really wonderful way that I started getting into quilting and then designing more on my own with the magazines and book and things like that.
Excellent. That sounds amazing. And I love that you're teaching kids how to quilt. I think that no matter where they take that in their life, I mean, it might take 10 years, but they might, one day look at a sewing machine and be like, I want to go and do that again. That lady taught me how to sew. And I think that's so awesome. So I recently heard a podcast that was about doing great work. So we have good work and the stuff that pays the bills, and then we have great work that feels meaningful and it feels our soul. And what feels like great work to you?
That's very interesting. Wow, I don't know. It's it you know I feel like most of the work that I'm going by that definition, I don't know if the work itself is actually great, but most of the work that I'm doing now I feel like is great work because it took me a really long time to get to the point where I was making things that I liked to make, that other people liked, and that I could actually make some money at. And that combination has been a long time coming. So I'm pretty satisfied right now. I mean, I spent many years being a fine artist before I started actually the quilt project, and that was definitely kind of soul feeding, but it didn't really fulfill all of those criteria for me. So I feel like I can make funny animals, and maybe they're not conceptually as intricate as the work that I used to do, but they make me happy, and I'm happy that they make other people happy, and that I can actually feel like I have a business. So
Absolutely. And I think that's so wonderful. I think it's figuring out what you can make, you enjoy making, and that people want. It's like those three things are the hardest things to get right. It's one thing to make something and it's kind of like, don't really enjoy making it, but people like it. It's like, it always seems to be that balancing act. And it's so wonderful that you found something that feels all three. I'm so happy for you. I really am. I love your animals. As I said, like, I'm going to get on Etsy every time you put something up and try and get another one. So I love collecting them. I just think they're so much fun. So if things continue to sell and build at this rate, do you have any plans to change how you're doing things or to expand the business in any way?
Well, one thing I have thought of is, do I need to hire somebody to help me with things? But I'm not sure how to do that, and I'm not sure what they would actually do. I feel like it's important that I make the things that I'm selling because they have a certain hand to them that is mine. So I wonder about hiring somebody to do things like shipping and all of that kind of stuff. On the other hand, I might have to raise my prices to do that. So I don't know. I really am a maker and not a business person. So I don't really have a clue. Like, I don't have like this 5-year plan or like this. I'm like, I'm just making stuff and I'm happy that people want them. And I know that's not very business-like, but I figure it's the best I can do right now.
Yeah, that's you. And actually, that's so funny because that was actually my next question is, where do you see your business in the next 5 years?
I really could not say. I mean, it's so, in 5 years, my older daughter will be going to college. So, who knows what will happen, and who, I don't have a clue. I really don't. Will I still be doing the ceramics? I hope so. I mean, I hope I'll still be sewing. I hope, I hope whatever it is that I'm just doing something that will be great work. That will be, in that way.
Absolutely. I don't think that we can hope for anything more than that, and sometimes you just have to be like, well, I trust that that's where everything is leading. So thank you so much for being on the show today. Can you tell everybody where they can find you online and check out your awesome work?
Thank you so much for having me. You can go to fishmuseumandcircus.com, and there is a pop-up there if you want to sign up for my email newsletter. There is a link to the Etsy shop, although, as we were saying, things sell out really fast, so you have to look in the sold items to actually see the ceramic work. And there's tabs on the side. You can link to my quilt project and all my other projects and my book and things like that.
Excellent. Well, I really hope everybody will come and check out your website and get on your newsletter, because that's the best way to know when new ceramics are going up. And you're now all going to be competing against me. I really want one of those thread pooping unicorns. So that's it for this episode. If you'd like to find more episodes of the Hello My Quilting Friends podcast, check it out at leahday.com/podcast. We have a player that will play through all of the episodes shared so far, so you can binge listen for hours on end. Until next time, let's go quilt.